Welcome to Linux for the Rest of Us, episode 254.
Hey, Jonathan, how's everything going, man?
Everything is awesome on my end now that I'm speaking with you.
Trust me, I absolutely feel the same way. I'll say this show is, I'm going to say, brought to you by Small Box Admin. And Small Box Admin might say, well, why is that? Well, it so happens he pinged me in Discord and said, is Linux for the Rest of Us pod fading? And quite literally, like 5 seconds before that, you sent me an email, Jonathan, asking if you wanted to record a show.
There you go.
So yeah, timing is everything. So I'll say thank you, Small Box Admin, for not forgetting about us, number one. And I'll thank Jonathan for coming out. So the long and the short of it, Jonathan, is this show has not done a show for over a year now. But here's the thing. If we were to time travel from that time to today, really, I don't know how much of the world of Linux would have actually changed.
I'm hearing you. I'm reading stories here, and I don't think I missed too much of the world in a year's time, in the Linux world, that is.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's plenty of advancements that have been happening. There's plenty of changes that have been happening, but nothing like the changes that we witnessed back in 2008, 2010, 2012 kind of time frame.
Oh yeah.
And it seems like a huge, huge percentage of the updates and changes are either kernel level, like under the radar kind of thing that normal people just won't interact with, or enterprise focused stuff that I really could care less about. I could not care less about.
Like containers and stuff. Those are insane right now.
Yeah, and I mean, they're cool. Don't get me wrong. I could see how I could use them, but it's like I can use a wrench, I can use a power tool, and and I can use other things. But if the one tool you have works, why on God's or green earth would you push yourself to use other technology when you don't have to? I mean, if you want to exercise stuff and try stuff out, I get it.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's the free and open source world we live in, right, Dor?
Yes, it gives us the opportunity to try anything we want, whenever we want, as long as we're not, like freedom haters.
Exactly.
And I will say, speaking of freedom haters, I did talk to Chad last night, and he was asking how that you were doing.
Well, again, I'm doing a lot better now that I'm kind of sticking my head out of the back out into the world again, right? So
yeah, me too is what I'll say. Me too. Now the first thing I just want to talk about in the world of Linux is I'm going to start with my mind's been changed. I was mistaken. I was wrong. I was incomplete, and I just really was surprised by some of the changes. And I'll say this. The two words I love to say are, I don't know, and I was wrong. Because if I say I don't know, it gives me the opportunity to learn something. And, right. I like learning stuff. If I say I was wrong, that means I did learn something.
That's a good point.
Yeah. There are plenty of people I know that will not say I don't know. They'll say I'm not sure. And then they also won't say I was wrong. They'll say, wow, I was misinformed about the situation.
Right.
But I'm going to say I was completely wrong. And what I was completely wrong about was I really hated the idea of gaming pushing Linux technology forward. I didn't want gaming to own that mantle. I didn't want gaming to say, well, if it wasn't for us, Linux, you would be, far behind. I didn't want that to happen. Number one. Number two, I swore up and down that KDE is the heavy, bloated, slow desktop. And I'll say this, it was.
Wow. Do tell, Dor. You got me intrigued right now, my friend.
Well, but I'll say today in 2022, KDE Plasma Desktop is, I'll just say, like to sound like an Aussie, it's ripper fast. It just flies, it flows, and I use i3 as my normal daily driver desktop. Okay. That's what I use because I want function over form.
Right.
But when I use KDE Plasma in a proper environment, it is literally lightning fast. I can find everything I want to find pretty quickly, almost as
Mm.
fast, if not faster, than on GNOME based things. And I'm, been using GNOME since 2006. So I should
Hey,
know where
hey,
everything's at.
Hey, Dor, here's a quick like interjection thing. When you say when we're talking plasma, my memory is right, or if I'm mistaken, let me know. But like when you talk about plasma, the plasma desktops, they have these things called like plasmoids, right? Or something like that. Or like they're instead of like icons, they're called like plasmoids, or as those are the plasmas. They're like icons, but more powerful than icons. Does that make sense?
Yeah, on the
Is
normal desktop, you would have just another folder with other files in it.
mm,
On the Plasma desktop, you can have .shortcut files, or you can have the plasmoids, which are literally like icons, like on steroids.
right. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, on Plasma desktop, it's very easy to integrate what they call activities, um, aka activity on podcasting. I click that
Oh, I've heard of
activity,
this.
and it can
Yeah.
automatically launch OBS, Mumble. Let's say I use the Brave browser when I podcast,
Yep.
and it would automatically
Yep.
group those things together, which I'll say it's also pretty powerful.
That's cool. Now, with your experience with that, is it pretty quick? Say if you're like, all right, launch podcast or whatever, does it pull up all your apps pretty quickly? Like, as if you're just kind of like click, doing it yourself?
Yeah, what it's almost like if I were to log in and I have my startup applications listed.
Mm.
But instead of having to log out and log back in, I'm literally just switching users. It's basically as fast as that,
Wow.
I can,
Wow.
which I can say is desirable for a lot of use cases, but not maybe for everybody.
That's really cool.
Well, now here's the real kicker thing. The reason I had my mind changed about these two things, I kind of can't show people on YouTube the video of it because I'm using it right now. And that is my wife let me, in air quote, and she let me get a Steam Deck. And this is literally a AMD Ryzen powered laptop, crunched a little bit smaller, running Arch Linux with SteamOS on it, SteamOS on it, and easily in SteamOS you can hit the power button once or the Steam button once, scroll down to switch to desktop mode, and then it launches a pure KDE Plasma desktop where you can just simply load up a terminal, type PASSWD, and bam, you have root.
Dude,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Well, and I'll say this. Okay, here's how it's even more awesome. In the Steam operating system, you can click a button, go down, and it will tell you every single component on your device and the
Nice.
version of each of those devices on, because there's like two different thumbsticks you can have, two different fans you can
Right.
have. It will tell you which one you have. You don't even have to open it up.
Wow.
Valve also basically teamed up with iFixit to publish complete teardown videos and how to replace part videos on everything.
Mm.
They also said this operating system is Linux. It's Arch-based Linux.
Mm, mm.
Anybody can contribute to it. We might not take it, but anybody can
Right.
use it as well. And there's already at least one manufacturer that said they're going to release a x86 based handheld device, I believe early next year, that's going to be running the same operating system essentially. So, and the long and the short of it is, this is the nuclear weapon. This is the 1918 pandemic coronavirus getting out onto the public that will change people's perspectives forever. And
Mm.
I don't believe I'm overstating that. I believe this handheld unit will change consumers' perspectives on game console devices until time ends.
So now this Steam Deck, it's not like an Xbox where you plug into the TV then, right? It's more like a laptop kind of thing or whatever.
Well, and here's why I think they're also doing it right. Kind of like the Nintendo Switch. You can
Okay.
play in handheld mode, or you can put into a dock, just slide it into a dock, and then it will be
Hmm.
projected onto a TV screen. Um,
Interesting.
with the Steam Deck, it's in handheld mode, 7-inch screen, nice big screen, touch screen controllers, nice buttons. And they just released the Steam Dock, which I will admit I do think it is a little bit overpriced. But considering the wife said, "What do you want for Christmas?" and I said that, I got it, but
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I haven't unboxed it yet. But using my other USB-C dock, it's very easy to just plug it up to
Hmm.
via USB-C, HDMI out, big screen TV. I can connect a game controller to it, external game controller to it, and it plays just like now a desktop console.
Hmm. 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 Hmm.
But here's like the ultimate kicker. Here is what no game console manufacturer can even begin to compete with. All those other things I mentioned, they can't compete with either. But this is the one thing that they will never be able to compete with. If you're already a PC gamer, doesn't matter if you're Windows or Linux. Okay, doesn't matter. Okay. You have your Steam library. You might have 20.
Hmm.
You might have 20,000. It doesn't matter. You might have whatever. When you buy this console on day one, your entire library is at least available for you to try and play. I want to say they have almost a success rate of almost 90% now of
Really?
games, of games in the library working via the Proton layer, which is nothing more than Wine compatibility layer. Um,
Okay.
and because you can access desktop mode, you can install custom versions of Proton, like heavily focused towards game A, B, or C. Um,
Mm.
but here's the real kicker. That's great. That's fine. So this game console launched with the largest possible game library of any console that ever existed. Number one. Number two,
Mm.
it launched with a larger game library possible than all other game consoles that ever existed combined.
Wow.
So Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, none of them can compete with this. And then here's the ultimate kicker. When they come out with a Steam Deck 2, a Steam Deck 3, a Steam Deck 4, a Steam whatever, you will be
Yeah.
able to play all the games you already purchased. You do not have to rebuy
Right.
them again.
Well,
Boom.
dude, I mean, honestly, this opens another market for like hardware people. I mean, forget Steam Deck. Like you could, they're already making the software available and everything. There could be other manufacturers right now running out there and being like, I'm going to build the next whatever and use all the Steam, I don't know. Dude, it's interesting.
Well, that, and then here's the other
Very
thing.
interesting.
The link isn't in the notes. I completely forgot about it. My bad. Sorry. I want to say it's called Helio OS. Okay. For those in the know, you have Visual Studio Code, then you have VS Codium. It's the exact same application, but with the Microsoft binary blobs ripped out of it. Completely
Hmm.
functional application, does everything VS Code can do, but does not communicate with Microsoft.
Hmm.
We've seen that with more than a couple applications in the past where they take it and they customize it, like the Chromium base is Brave,
Right.
the Brave browser kind of thing. Well, what they did was you can get copies of SteamOS. They took out some of the things that were specifically only engineered for that one hardware spec of right now the Steam Deck, and they made Helios, which is the exact
There
same
you go.
operating system basically. And as long as you have an AMD based chip,
Radeon or Ryzen. Ryzen.
I'm not sure you have to have a Ryzen. As long as it's AMD based chip,
Okay.
not Intel based, you can basically drop this and install it right on a x86 desktop computer.
Hmm.
Now, the real like kicker to me is I'm saying it. This is the year that Linux is becoming synonymous with computing to where, you know, it isn't going to be some weird, odd thing that some big, fat 30-year-old in their mom's basement picking their nose knows about. This is something that
Right.
we're going to have a majority of kids and gamers know, comprehend, and understand how to get to the desktop mode, what a terminal is, what Arch Linux is, how to install
Right.
apps. It's like crazy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, and I'll
So
say this. Here's the other reason why I think it's already the year of Linux being real. One of the top KDE developers was at a conference less than 2 months ago, and they did like a Q&A. And at one point in time, he turned to somebody in the audience says, "I'm not sure if it's okay if I say this." And apparently they nodded yes. He said, "We have already sold over 1 million of these devices. So right now,
Wow.
the likelihood is 90% of those people have never used Linux before in their life. Now
Right.
they're using Linux. This is the largest on-ramp we've ever had to the Linux ecosystem, and I don't see it slowing down."
So how much are the Steam decks?
Well, the cheapest one in air quote is $399, comes out to $417. The most
Okay.
expensive one was, I want to say, $630, and what Valve said, very surprisingly to them, people are picking the high-end version almost every time. It's almost like they're buying it to support Valve, kind of thing. It's like,
what's kind of the difference? Is it just more RAM and stuff or whatever? Probably like bigger hard drive.
No. This is the absolute other beautiful part about this. This is why Gabe Newell people in Linux should be shipping him money. It's the same processor. Okay. Everything about each unit is exactly the same. Processor, RAM, bus speed, screen ratio, the only difference is the low end, you have a cheap eMMC hard drive, which is like phone grade storage. The middle tier, you have a M.2 SSD.
Okay.
Twice as and that middle one is, let's say, 256 gig size.
Yeah.
And then the most expensive one has a 512 gig SSD, plus it has a matte finish screen. That's the only differences between the three versions.
Wow.
So which means very smart. That means they only have to target one platform to become efficient.
Exactly. Yeah. No, exactly.
Right. And then here's the other kicker. Okay. Every promotional video ever put out by Valve about this device showing gameplay is running the game from an SD card. Because it has an SD card, you can get, I want to say it's up to a 2 terabyte SD card and shove it in. So you don't even need to have the high end version. You can literally just like swap out SD cards and play your games. And every game they're showing is running off SD card, which is just like another testament to they're setting the bar
speed of the
low
machine and everything. Yeah.
Right. They're like setting the bar low and they're easily exceeding it.
Well, that's like under promising and over delivering, right?
Dare I say, there's 2 lines that Steve Jobs said that I agree with. Everything else, I'd like to punch him in his throat, but he's dead. 1, always under promise, over deliver. 2, always ask. The worst they'll say is no.
Exactly.
So,
yeah,
I honestly believe because of what this device means, we are going to see Linux now ubiquitously everywhere, and we're going to have so many more people understand the basics of Linux. I think it's literally going to be insane. I've showed this now to like 3 kids, because here's the other gimmick. Xbox, Sony, Nintendo seem to thrive off of how you have the real scummy people going out, scooping up the hardware, then putting it on eBay, scalping it for like 3 times the price.
Yeah, right.
This is the other thing Valve did, I'll say near like genius-like level of stuff. They said, well, you can't buy it directly from us. No, sorry. You can only buy it directly from us, but you have to have a pre-existing account. Your account has to be at least a year old, and you have had to spend at least $1 with us. This is what they said on like the initial launch of the device. So the only people who could buy it for like the first 8 months were people who were already Valve people.
Like
Steam
users and actual legit people. Yeah.
So we're having a remarkably low number of these showing up on scalpers markets. So
that's interesting.
So they're literally like controlling the narrative, and they're doing it wonderfully. Now they literally just like last week or maybe 2 weeks ago opened up to say, if you order it today from Steam, it's going to ship this week, kind of thing. Where everybody else is experiencing slowdowns. You know what I mean? Everybody in the world is experiencing slowdowns. Somehow Tesla and Valve are like quadrupling their production.
Yeah.
So it's like, this device, and I've showed it to like 4 kids. All 4 were like, all four of them were like, "What is that? I never heard of that." And then I put it in their hands, and they're like, "Oh my god!" And then they run to their parents. That's what I want for Christmas.
Yeah. So is it like is it a tablet? Does it have physical like buttons and stuff for like the controller part if it's handheld?
If you ever played with the Wii U,
Okay, yep.
it had the big honking tablet with the controls
Yeah.
built inside it. It's basically almost the same form factor as that,
Okay. Okay.
except much more ergonomical in the hands. It looks
All right, that's cool.
kind of like how the Steam controller looked ridiculous, but then when you close your
Mm.
eyes and put it in your hands, like, wow, this is like really comfortable, really easy to use. The same thing I say with this, even though the Switch is lighter, the Switch is thinner, the Switch, this is still more comfortable to hold for long periods of time.
Hmm.
And
Very
I'll
cool.
say they have dual sticks, directional pad, AB, the L1 and L2, but they also have two trigger buttons on the back. So they literally have like finger buttons on the back of the controller. So there's four more buttons back there. But the
Hmm.
real like coup de grace is they have two track pads on it as well, where your thumbs are, where you can use the track
Okay
pads if
then.
you want. And then here's how, again, I explained to my one cousin, here's another way that no game company can compete because this is a computer, a desktop
Exactly.
computer shoved into a thing, which means by default, you have infinitely customizable controls.
Totally.
And you can take your control scheme and you can say, I like this control scheme. Let me save it. Let me publish it. And I can say, hey, Jonathan, you should try this control scheme. And
Yeah, right,
literally,
dude?
yeah. And the cream rises to the top. The more people that like a control scheme, the more popular it becomes. The more popular it becomes, the more people that use it. So, if you get a game that's been out for more than a week and you go to the control schemes, you're going to find like the default one probably works just great.
Hmm. Man.
Yeah. So, and I'll say it like this: we, as a community of old people, we have had emulation nailed for like a decade now. We can emulate almost anything. Like Nintendo Switch, we were able to emulate less than a year and a half after it launched, which
Right.
is kind of crazy. But we have emulation nailed. The weak spot of emulation has always been the same thing: input controls. How do you
Yeah.
interact with it? Because some people would use mouse keyboard, some people would use this Logitech controller, some people would use the Xbox, and it wasn't consistent across devices. Now that we have over 1 million people with the exact same hardware using
Right.
emulation, the control, I mean, listen, I'm playing N64 games. I swear the controls are more precision. They're more precise. The precision and preciseness of the controllers are precise. To where it's better than the original controller. That's crazy.
Right. Right. Right.
But I
I, I,
digress.
I dude, I now I want to get one for one of my kids for Christmas.
Well, and then ready. Here's the other kicker. I know there's a lot of kickers with this thing. Um, a lot of people are running a emulation platform called EMU Deck, EMUDECK, which is really powerful, really polished, really nice. Scans your libraries, adds media, pretty interfaces, yada yada yada. But there is another, like built into Steam, available for free, RetroArch, and that's the
Mm.
one that it's the back end of what everyone has been using for now for like 8 years. But
Oh,
with
RetroPie or whatever.
exactly,
Yeah.
well, it's all part of LibreCore, and LibreCore is the
Okay.
base. RetroPie, RetroArch built off of that, and
Okay.
if you get the official Steam version of RetroArch, the DLC is the different emulators. So you can literally say, give me the SNES emulator, give me the PS1 emulator kind of thing. But then when you load up RetroArch, they have a new thing where it's literally called, I'm going to probably call this the wrong thing, but it's remote net play. So quite
Mm.
literally, I could load up NES ice hockey and I can say to a guy in New Zealand, let's play ice hockey because he's already in my
Dude,
friends
shut
list.
up.
Oh yeah, exactly. And you can play games that were meant to be couch co-op over the internet.
Dude, that is insane.
That to me is like we've now reached peak mecha.
Yeah, seriously. Like I could play you in Tech Mobile right now. That's wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, Tecmo Bowl, Super Tecmo Bowl, and again, sorry, tide tangent. Tecmo Bowl is one of those games. The fans were so fanatic, which I know it's like oxymoronic saying, but the fans were so fanatic. They literally have updated ROMs with updated rosters for like almost every football year.
That's insane.
Yeah, and that is one of the games where I like dun 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 dun. Again, yeah,
Exactly.
Mm-hmm,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah, way too much fun is what I would say. And then because now we've nailed emulation so good, you can use save states. You can share your save state. You can use rewind features like
Dude,
Prince
you
of
can
Persia,
share your save state. That's insane.
Everything about this it's literally this is peak retro nerd thing. The only thing I haven't figured out how to do yet is how to properly emulate in television because that controller was so messed up.
Oh yeah, yeah, it was crazy. It was like a telephone with a little knob at the top of it. Yeah,
it was not normal, is what I'll say.
yeah, no. Yeah, man. I'll tell you what. That's high praises for the Steam Deck. It sounds like.
Now, what I'll say I'm not wrong about is Fedora still doesn't exist. It's just a beta channel of Red Hat. I'm sticking to it. I just had to say that.
Why? What have they been up to?
Nothing. That's the whole thing. Well, they finally killed CentOS proper. It's dead. Doesn't exist anymore. But now it's just officially official. Fedora doesn't really exist because it only lives for like 9 months and then they kill it. Where every other distro on the face of the planet, you get at least like a couple of years of updates.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, it's their testing ground, their stomping ground for beta stuff to go into Red Hat. And I understand if I was Red Hat, I would want something like Fedora around too. But I don't like Java. I hate Java. I hate everything about Java. I never want to do anything with Java again. And it seems like the core functionality of Red Hat is to create Java stacks and to, inside of enterprise environments. One more side tangent. We now my 9 to 5, we have a brand new in air quote tool that we're using, hundreds of millions of dollars, whatever. I was part of the team that was deciding what vendors to listen to, what should be our goals and should be our objectives. At one point in time, I said, I really think we need to go with a full Java stack. And the head of IT said, but we're a Microsoft shop. Why would you say that? I said, well, it'll be like we can napalm the entire office and just start from scratch. Yeah, he didn't like that very much.
Oh man.
Yeah, so that's my most recent. This is the only thing I've been excited about with Linux for like a year because I love the fact this is the most functional mobile computing device I've ever had in my life because I can easily drop in to a full desktop, pull up a terminal, install whatever I want, and move on. Now, I will say, there's two things you got to do. There's one command that makes the root partition essentially writable. Once you do that, then you really have to set a password. Once you set up the root password,
oh, you have to like chmod it or whatever.
I can't remember the actual command I had to run. But then the gimmick is when there's big updates, all your changes get wiped out. So
that probably makes sense.
So there's certain things. So like if you install a Flatpak, though, from what I can gather, since I've installed the Flatpak version, it seems like I've gotten updates, but my changes haven't went anywhere. They're like still there. Where if I drop and type pacman-su, I believe, and install something, those changes get wiped out.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, that's right. I totally forgot it's using Arch. That's right.
Yeah, and then so at any point in time, there's like one command you can run, or you can go into the gamer interface and you can easily just reset the entire device and start over. Almost in the same way how Chromebooks have that hidden storage on board to where during boot, if it thinks it got infected, it will reflash the entire operating system. I believe this device is doing the same kind of thing where there's some hidden storage off to the side, and at any point in time, you can say revert back to it. I'm going to guess that's going to extremely mitigate RMAs back to them.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, man. This is pretty exciting.
And like the gimmick is, um, in it brand new. Yes, if you run a triple A game at full blast, 60 frames a second, yeah, you're going to get like an hour and a half battery life. That's what happens.
Sure. Yeah.
But the other thing they also did smart is there's a button you can launch, and it will basically have a hardware level tweak tool in the game to where you can say, okay, limit this game to 30 frames, limit this game to this resolution, so you can forcibly keep things at a tighter frame rate
later. Yeah,
to extend battery life. But then of course if you run something like I'm trying to like GTA 3 for instance, you're going to get like 8 hours of battery life.
So like what's the best game that you have on that you played or whatever for like graphics and stuff like that?
I'm going to say it is Borderlands 2.
Okay.
Which is like a first-person shooter.
Yeah, yeah. My son plays that game.
Yeah, and it has more like cel-shaded, cartoony graphics, but it definitely takes a little bit of a toll.
Yeah, that's pretty cool though.
But one of the funnest games I played that's not on emulation, it's called Vampire Survivors. It's akin to basically old school arcade like graphics. You only have a joystick. All you do is move around, and then you fire at a preset rate, and then you can get power-ups that can change the rate of your fire, the type of your fire kind of thing. And then if you max out certain things, they combine and create super weapons, and the enemies are extremely good, is what I want to say. But the best thing about the game, like back in the day, if you were to play Atari, you could play Kaboom and get like a world record pace, yet you could still sit there as you're playing it and talk to somebody.
Right.
Right. That's how I classify that game, Vampire Survivors. It's a kind of game where you can become a master at it, but yet you can still hold a conversation with somebody as you play it. Where most games, too much attention is needed. You can't do anything else.
Interesting. That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, definitely different. So I personally believe, this Steam Deck version 1, it's kind of like the first CR48 Chromebook. I had that at that time. And when I had that, I said, this is going to change people's perspectives on computing, because really the operating system now is a browser. If you don't have a browser on a computer, it's literally useless. And if you only have a browser on the computer, you can nearly do everything.
Dude, that was the best way to put that I've ever heard it, for sure.
Well, and I believe this gaming device, this format of gaming device running this operating system in 5 years will be maybe not the majority owned, but there will no longer be talks about only Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo.
Yeah. I think it sounds like there's a new player in town now, for sure.
Well, and Gabe Newell and Valve, they kind of hinted at this for years. They had the Steam boxes that failed miserably. They had the Steam controller that they had to stop selling because of lawsuit things, which I still think is almost the best controller I've ever had in my life. They've taken those things in the past that were complete failures, and they did what good companies and organizations are supposed to do. You're supposed to learn from it.
And don't give up.
By Garth Oxhammer, never give up, never surrender.
Yeah, So,
yeah. And I watched that movie the other day again. And I did watch that movie again the other day. Galaxy Quest, Never Give Up, Never Surrender. Wow, it holds up very well.
Man. Yeah, that's I don't know, like I said, it's impressive to see someone doing something pretty cool with Linux and outside of, data-driven stuff like, big industrial stuff or whatever. It's cool to see Linux being used for some cool stuff.
But yeah, I agree. I mean, we're always going to have a foot in cloud computing. We're always going to be in enterprise server rooms. We're always going to be the backbone of Chromebooks, it seems like.
Right.
We're always going to be the basics of like probably the main driving thing, maybe even in phones. Google's working on Fuchsia, so we might lose some traction with some of that stuff. But the slow and steady has always won the race. Okay. Sure, Apple was near extinct when I first started this podcast. I remember telling Cherubino, oh, this is it. Their sales keep going down and down and down and down. At this pace, in like 5 years, they're going to be non-existent anymore. Of course, I didn't know that 8 months later, whatever, they would come out with an iPhone.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. So one of those things. So, I can only say that Valve is proven that they don't like how other game companies work. And look, I'm a Nintendo fanboy. I ain't gonna lie. I know I'm but Nintendo is the Apple of game companies. I have no problem admitting that as well, because they will sue you into existence. They will do their own proprietary thing. You can only play Mario where they say you can play Mario,
right?
No place else.
Yeah.
And Valve is quite literally the redneck in the room. And I say that because the original term redneck had nothing to do with Scots-Irish people in the Appalachian Mountains, but it actually comes back from Scotland, where rebels against the king wore red ribbons around their neck. So they were rednecks. So quite literally, Valve and Gabe is the rednecks in the room, basically like the anti-dips, like terrorist, like completely anti-government kind of thing, just making explosions all around the room. And I'm sure Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft are all going to ignore it like it doesn't exist until it's too late.
Right. Yeah, because I'd imagine, I don't have the numbers, but it would be, I can speak from experience. I have 3 boys. 2 out of 3 are total PC gamers than console gamers. And the only reason why my youngest is a console gamer is because I haven't bought him a PC yet. So I'd be interested to see, a lot of these PC players are going to be jumping on this thing, because I don't know, it's kind of mind-boggling to know you can take your PC games handheld now with you, and plug it. I buy my youngest son this now, instead of having to buy him the gaming PC, I could buy him this.
Well, and here's the other truth thing. The other thing that Valve, I don't want to say invented, but the other thing that they did better than anybody else back in the day was cloud sync. In the properties of each game, by default, cloud sync is turned on. You can turn it off if you want, but you can quite literally be playing on your handheld device, exit the game, 30 seconds later, go onto your desktop, go onto your laptop, go onto whatever, and you're playing the exact same save state automatically. But here's the thing that I think, one of the things I forgot to say about the Steam Deck that I think makes it the user experience best ever. At any point in time you're playing the game, you can just tap the power button, powers down, goes into hibernation in a second. You're ready to play it again. You tap that button again. Less than a second later, you're back up to that exact same spot playing that exact same game.
That's Linux right there.
That is the power. Yeah, that is the power of using the operating system.
Exactly. That's Linux getting flexed right there.
Yeah. And I'll say the guy from KDE who did the talk said not only do we have a million people using this device, for a year, he said for a year and a half before we knew what was going on, we kept getting feedback from Valve about, well, can you change this? Can you enhance this? Why does this look like this? Can you combine this to that? And he was like, they wouldn't stop giving us things to do. And every time we stopped and we thought about what they were telling us to do, we're like, yeah, they're right. This is good. Yeah, this is good. This is good. To where now, when I'm loading up a system monitor, this system monitor is the most advanced, most intensive, detail-oriented monitor application I've ever seen in Linux in my life. And
Mm.
I'm like a stickler. I love Bash top. I love H top. I love going in and seeing process. No, this one blows everything away. The usability of this desktop. If my main rig down here was an AMD based chip, I would have already had Helios on it, and been running that
Mm.
desktop mode.
Mm. No kidding.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the like I'll say the best praise I can give it.
Yeah, for real. Honestly, that's like I said. This is so now. How long has the Steam device been actually for sale? The Steam Deck.
I want to say less than a year, maybe 10
Mm.
months.
Wow, that's
Um,
really impressive.
well, it was for sale, but it didn't even ship for at least like 7 months, I want to say. And
Man,
then
so everyone's kind of just getting them now-ish or whatever.
well, it was insane how when you first pre-ordered it, you had to wait like 6 months to get the device kind of thing.
Yeah,
And then with each week, they were able to speed up
the
shipments.
process even more. Yeah.
Right, even more. Now, here's the tangent. Here's the other tangent. I found out basically why, how. The short of it is when anyone tries to describe something that is like in the real life with just a simple term like, oh, there's a chip shortage. It is so much more nuanced than that. Okay.
Right, right.
Okay. Here's like what oh, it's a chip shortage. That's like you're outside of the solar system looking at the planet. Okay. That's so like so let's at least come into orbit of the planet and let's describe what actually is going on really quick. Okay. There's 3 levels of chips. Basically high end, mid end, low end. Okay, on the high end of chips, that's all your main processors, your main GPUs, your supercomputer processors, your ASICs, crypto processors. Okay, all of them, 80% of them come out of 3 countries, are made in 3 countries, are produced and manufactured in 3 countries: United States, yeah, United States, Taiwan, and oh man, I can't remember the third one. I want to say
It might be
Indonesia.
like Germany or something, or I don't know.
No, it was somewhere southeast. I know that. So right there, high end chips. All the high end chips are coming from there. Notice some countries that aren't in that list. Okay, mid tier chips. Mid tier chips. You think of these as like your main phone processors, or your
Mm.
like tablet processors, or your low end Chromebook processors. Those kinds of things, or like the main processors in like your cable box. Okay, those are
Yeah,
your
all the
mid-tier
ARM
chips,
crap.
right? All of those chips are made in Taiwan, Indonesia, and Thailand, I believe it is. Again, notice what countries not in that list. Okay,
Right.
okay. Now you get to the low-end chips. These are the chips that only at the best can run IoT type stuff, like quite literally like smart plugs kind of thing,
Yeah.
like really the dumbest of the dumbest thing that only knows on or off kind of thing. Those chips are made in Taiwan, Indonesia, India, and China. And because now, just to get a touch political, since China has not been able to make a successful COVID vaccine ever, they still in this late 2022 are doing complete citywide lockdowns because they can't control
Yeah.
it. That's where the chip shortage is coming from. We're having a hard time getting these low end chips. Now, if we want to talk low end, we can't get any more precise to low end than automobiles. Auto manufacturers are the cheapest things in the world that want to move as slow as possible and maximize profit for as long as possible. So those guys are still using chip technology from 12 years ago. They
Oh yeah.
only have low end chips in their car, and then every now and then they have an intermediate chip. So they're having like the biggest hard time getting their chips. You can go into any store, you can buy any laptop, any desktop you want because those chips are readily available.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Exactly.
so thus Tesla makes their own chips, and
Right.
the chips in the Steam Deck, Gabe knew ahead of
Are
time what was coming, And he basically pre-ordered a bunch of things, had all the supply chains already lined up and fully stacked and packed and paid. So now he was literally able to quadruple how much they're putting out in the last 6 months.
Well, and dude, not only that, he's using x86 processors. They're desktop and laptop processors he's using in the machine.
Yeah. So just
So
and what that entails, and the biggest like side plus to that is A, no shortage, but B, it's everything this should at least run. It might not run beautifully or like without some kind of hiccups, but it's going to run.
exactly, it's kind of
Yeah.
genius.
Well, and I'll say the handheld device. It's a handheld device. It has 16 gigs of RAM. Oh, I love
Damn.
RAM.
Damn.
Yeah, I love me some RAM. So,
Hmm.
yeah, and like you can easily take this on the road. Even if you're a businessman, you can take it on the road, take your deck, put it in a dock, slap it up on a screen. You can use your Microsoft Teams or your Google Meet or whatever, and you can do whatever you need to do. You can use your Office 365. You can use your
Right? Yeah.
LibreOffice. You can use anything that you can think of, basically, because now this is 2022. But I remember we had a hard time getting audio editors on Linux. You know what I mean? Now I dare people to tell me stuff you can't run on Linux.
Yeah, right.
And
I remember the biggest thing was Photoshop too. Back in our day, everyone wanted Photoshop.
Photoshop and video editors. And now,
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
I dare people to tell me there's not a competent video editor on Linux.
Right. Yeah.
Now,
No,
speaking of back in the day, video editors, I will also throw this out there. If you notice, me and Jonathan, we had our just little personal thing in the very beginning, but then we tried to get right into it. There's a reason for that. And there's a reason for that. Like I now subscribe to 180 different podcast feeds. I listen to between 24 and 40 hours of podcast a day.
Mm-hmm.
I can only listen to one Linux podcast anymore because 90% of what most podcasts are talking about are like Halloween movies or like such minuscule details about Linux that I don't care about. Like, like the kernel level patches kind of thing. Oh, great. Oh, so now we can do a US 2222. Oh, yeah, that's good. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Dude, I love it when ButterFS gets upgraded.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So it's like, I don't either they're talking about such minute details about Linux, I don't care kind of thing. Or they're talking about like Halloween movies and how, the first Halloween movie had the original thing. I don't care.
Maybe Linux was running some part of it though.
Well, okay. And then here's like the devil's advocate kind of thing. And that's why I say right now in 2022, 90% of the things happening in air quote on Linux are not exhilarating. They're not discussion worthy.
Well, because back in the day, like again, however long ago, like desktops were still, desktop computing anyways was more of a thing. I mean, now that we have mobile phones and tablets and everything, I mean, the desktop computer has certainly taken a back seat. So why should there be crazy desktop wars anymore? So it's, it's interesting. It's good to see, like I said, Valve implementing Linux in this way and standing on the shoulders of giants and showing people like, hey, Linux can actually be used for something else other than kind of like running the New York Stock Exchange.
Well, honestly, something just changed in the last like 6 months, and the base system of the stock exchange, I believe, changed. But I couldn't catch what happened because I know there was a big announcement.
How I said that,
right? Because because at one point in time, I remember everyone was screaming how it's moving to Linux. It's a real-time kernel. Nothing can be this fast and responsive. And then I literally just heard, I want to say it was less than 6 months ago, how something key changed in the core of the stock exchange, but I couldn't catch it.
No kidding. But again, it's just I don't want to see too much right now, but and Dor doesn't even know really anything about this either. But I'll just say it's kind of like right here in this episode at this point here. I'm working on a project that it's fascinating to hear all this about the this Steam Deck. That's all I have to say because what I'm working on isn't a video game thing or anything, but it I'll talk to Dora more about it. But it's just I'll have more to say about some interesting projects I'm working on. That's going to be using Linux for like the underlying technology, and like you won't even know it when you're using the device. It's going to be awesome.
And that's the best. Okay, and look, Linus Torvalds said, I want to say it was now about 12 years ago, the best desktop environment is the one you don't even notice is there because you're too busy using the applications and the things behind it. I agree with that.
Exactly. Yeah.
The other way I was told this was Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker. When that game came out on GameCube, people were screaming that the graphics were like these blocks of cell shaded graphics. You know, this is like a downgrading graphics is what they kept saying. But when I played the game, the graphics just like bled right through, and I just played the game. I just had fun. I didn't even, and the best kind of graphics, it turns out, are graphics you don't even notice until you hit pause and then you look around.
Well, look at Minecraft.
Yeah.
I mean, that says it all right there.
Yeah. And it you know, a lot of people, I think, with Minecraft finally got woke. I'm using that word. They got woke to that graphics aren't the end all be all of a gaming experience. You have to make it fun.
Right. Totally. Absolutely.
Right. So, like another like Linux related thing that I will say is I only listen now to one Linux podcast. And I'm going to not tell you what it is, but I'm going to use like a analogy kind of thing. So I've had this one desktop that's streaming, Jonathan. This is the streaming rig I'm using is the same streaming rig that you built and shipped to me. How long ago was that?
Oh, dude, at least 10 years ago.
I'll just say 8. Yeah, something like that. Okay, but that's
8 to 10. 8 to 10. Right. 8 to 10.
That's still the same streaming rig. Okay, and then my main rig here that I'm physically on, it is now 7 generation old kind of thing. Intel processors, like we're up to 13. This is like generation 6, I want to say.
Yeah, yeah.
So I installed operating systems on them, and I never updated them. I updated them. I never upgraded them at all. So over the last like week, I decided to slightly, in air quote, modify my normal command I always run because I have a list of commands and it's separated by ampersand, which means I only got to run like one long command and it does all these in succession.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. It is sudo apt update. You know, ampersand is between all these commands. Sudo apt update, sudo apt upgrade, sudo apt dist upgrade, sudo apt full dash upgrade.
Oh man.
Sudo apt auto clean, sudo apt auto remove. Sudo apt dash git space install space aptitude dash y sudo aptitude safe upgrade and sudo snap refresh. So by running that in air quote one command, I'm able to do everything I need to do, including delete old kernels off my system.
Right.
So using that one command, I would basically run that command until it wouldn't run anymore, and then I decided to do the inevitable of sudo do dash release dash upgrade. And I took my streaming rig from Ubuntu 16.04 up to current. And
it's like 22 something or whatever.
22.04, and I did my desktop from 18 or my main rig from 18.04 up to current. In honor,
that's that of Dave Yates.
Well, that's in honor of the podcast. That's in honor of the podcast I still listen to. And
there you go.
And the desktop took like 3 days to upgrade, and my laptop took like 2 days to upgrade, and everything still works. Everything still works fine. Dude, nothing broke.
Yeah, dude, the second you started telling go with that story, it's like sounds like a someone story from back in the day, doing such a thing on a operating system called Debian.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'll say you mentioned Dave Yates. Here's the thing. Every now and then I still see blips of Dave Yates. And when I say that out loud, I guarantee you there's not a single listener that knows the platform or the interface I'm going to say next.
Mm,
Where I see Dave Waite, where I see Dave Yates' activity, and where Dave Yates sees my activity.
mm.
It's on Google Maps.
Did you guys share like locations or whatever?
Well, no. On Google Maps, it turns out you can follow people's like reviews and stuff. And all of a sudden,
Oh.
like one day I got a thing that said you have a new follower. I'm like, excuse me? And I look at it and it says David Yates. I'm like, hell yes, he can follow me. Are you kidding me? So yeah,
No kidding.
yeah,
There you
that and
go.
Tracy Holtz did share his location with me, so I've shared it back with him. So he's like all over the U.S. hauling
Oh
rigs and
yeah, yeah.
trucks.
He's all. Yeah, exactly. He's everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I'm gonna say, Jonathan, is we've literally been going for an hour. We've talked about mainly just one thing. Um, I did send you a list of stuff, and the real reason I sent you the list of stuff is just because I just wanted someone else to see, there is stuff happening. It's not like one of the more mundane things that I thought was still relevant was ICE WM finally got to version 3.
It's funny that made me think of a time your good friend and I's John at Dog Hall, where I think it was at one of the Ohio Linux Fest we were at, and he was just it was when we were sitting around listening to him talk and telling his Mad Dog stories. But I remember him being once like someone was saying something about like a audio player, like it was like maybe the 80s. And they're just like, oh, it hasn't been updated or whatever, like blah blah. But Mad Dog is like, maybe it's finished. He was like, nothing. It's like software doesn't always need to be upgraded. It was just a good point that he made.
He
Like
yes, he
we're
was
done.
nearly he was nearly irate, but still wanting to be nice.
Exactly.
And yeah, and he is absolutely right. Not all applications need updates. Sure, if your application is a security risk, update it. But if you're an
Right.
audio editor, maybe you're fine.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just funny. Maybe it's done. I was like, yeah, good point.
Yeah, I remember that. And the other thing I always remember was when he was giving a talk and he accidentally knocked his flask off the podium.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh God, I want to start crying right there. It was so great.
Well, I don't think that was the same one where we snuck him a beer while he was talking, was he? Because we had a backpack full of beer.
That the backpack was the previous year before that, where I just walked right, just hand him a beer. I don't care.
Just right during the talk, it's like, here you go, Mad Dog. We know you need this.
Oh, and he was thankful too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll say we have been. I believe we've been going for an hour. I'm not positive. Something I
Yeah. The one thing that was cool that I caught my eye was like the distro box thing. That looked cool where you could pretty like just from the command line, you could launch these containers with distros in them and like launch them and run them right in your terminal. And almost like a virtual machine. It would give access to like the USB ports, your storage, everything, and you could still interact with like the host operating system. That looked kind of interesting. Like it was like
distro.
a really quick way to get stuff up and running. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, distro box is one of those things where, again, if we would have had that thing like 12 years ago, oh my
Oh,
lord,
dude.
we would have
That would have made
abused.
distro hopping to a whole nother level.
Yeah, yeah, because you can do it all in your browser. There is the dedicated website. I link to the GitHub because you can literally download the code yourself if you wanted to, but you can
Exactly.
literally run it from their website. The only difference is, depending on how busy it is, you might have to click it and then wait for a
Mm,
slot to become open, which is perfectly
okay.
expectable. I mean, that's the way,
Yeah.
resources aren't free. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so quite literally, if you want to hop into a fresh distro and try something to see if it breaks a distro, it's now officially true. There is no easier way to do it than just
Seriously.
going to DistroBox. It's just everything we've ever dreamt about
There was like
unreal.
eight, yeah, it listed like it was like 8 to 10 commands on their GitHub page, and it was just ridiculous. It was like distro box install whatever, distro. It was like distro box enter into this container. I was like, wow, it was just so simple and easy. I was like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, and this is the kind of technology where even if I was a admin or a small box admin kind of thing, this is the kind of thing where I would have,
Hey-o.
yeah, I would have in my holster at all times, because if I'm getting ready to do something, the last thing I want to do is get the attention of the CIO. So let me run it on DistroBox first, and let's see what happens.
For real. Yeah, no, it seemed really cool. Like I said, that was one of the things that kind of caught my eye. I was like, that's really cool. Just because it was so like the ease of access was ridiculous, insane.
Yeah, and that is the other. Yeah, and you've like right there like tingled the other part of Linux that I think is really matured is the ease of doing even like expressly complex things. To have
Mm,
this kind of functionality back in the day would have required like literally an hour's worth of setup, probably downloading, hundreds and hundreds of like megabytes just to get the like thing started, and then you would
yeah,
have to get
exactly.
each distribution yourself, and you'd have to do all these things ahead of
Exactly.
time. To where now it's quite literally, we've just, I don't want to say cut corners because that insinuates some sort of cheapening kind of thing, but we've made fewer hops to the end of our journey.
Yeah, well, this distro boxing and like really quickly in his notes too on GitHub, he was kind of like, oh, thanks to like this project, like this project for making it possible. He's basically saying like, hey, all I did was just kind of make this wrapper to make these kind of 3 to 4 things work together, and voila. I was like, that's really cool.
Yeah, and this is an example to me of a guy who saw what could be possible and just decided to like string it together.
Exactly, which is that's there. That right there is the power of Opus and Linux or whatever right there. That's how it's done.
Yeah, and the backbone of it is using Podman and Docker, two tools I won't use because I don't have the patience to use them. I don't have the need to use them, but I'll be happy to use a tool that uses them.
Exactly, dude. Exactly. Like, oh, or use Docker and wraps everything in it. Sure, sign me up.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. It's kind of like if I don't have to wash the dishes, but the dishes still get washed, I'm game. If I don't have to use
right,
Docker, but it uses Docker, I'm game.
right. One other thing that caught my eye too was the cat that podcasting thing, the cast something cast or cast whatever website or the self-hosted thing. That was awesome. Um,
Yeah, cast pod. This is the kind of thing now. Okay. Um, secretly, Jonathan, between me and you, I was able to hang with your friend and mine, the techie geek Russ Winter, about 5 months ago or so. Uh,
mm,
he wanted to go to I can't remember what the correct term of it is. It's basically like a ancient, not ancient, but uh a antique gun show.
okay, there you go.
And he says, "Do you want to go?" And I said, "If you want to go, then yes."
Right. Mr. Techie Geek, I'll go with you anywhere, sir.
Right, and it's like, and I explained to him when I was there, Rush, you understand? I don't even own a gun. And he was like, and he like jerked, like, excuse me? And I says, no, me and my wife have a definite agreement, understanding. When this marriage ends, one person's going out the door horizontally. And the last thing we need to do is need to make it too easy for one person to, make that
Yeah,
commitment.
exactly.
So yeah, and I was, look, Russ, don't get me wrong. I'm absolutely a Second Amendment guy. Everybody who's capable and competent should have the ability to own whatever the hell you want. I don't care,
Yeah, for sure.
but I don't own one. So he was kind of shocked. But we were walking around, and he mentioned he had a domain that I'm not going to mention that he transferred to me. That I'm
Mm.
tempted to install this app in air quotes on that domain so I can actually experience and see what it is. long and the short of it is, think of this cast pod as basically an encapsulated, appified WordPress instance. It's not
Yes.
WordPress. Okay, it's
Thank
not.
you.
But
Thank
it
you.
but it isn't WordPress. Okay. So what happens is it looks like you basically just download this zip file, you expand it on your directory. There's some
Yep.
basic like scripts you run that will instantiate the database, create base default credentials, get you started, get you running, and then all of a sudden you have yourself a podcasting platform. And in the podcasting platform, it can directly connect with stuff like WeChat or I can't, some other,
All kinds of other like up to date stuff. It was kind of ridiculous.
right. It can
Like,
connect with
yeah.
Mastodon, all kinds of different platforms in the
Yep.
back end.
Yep.
There are built-in promotional tools to where you can like have, if you're downloading my podcast in Ireland, I can have Irish ads into it. If you're
Right.
downloading
Yep.
my podcast in Australia, I can have upside down ads in them. Um,
Exactly.
it can help promote your podcast RSS feed with simpler assistance to push it to Apple, Spotify, blah 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 blah
Yeah, I
blah blah
think
blah.
it. Yeah, I think it's built. Yeah, it's like built in to push it all to that easily for you. Yep.
Right.
You can also one thing that was cool too. Not that I do anything with videos, but it was like it also has stuff built in to you to take video snippets and or audio snippets and then share those to like your social media feeds, like all within this. You know, within your kind of your domain here, your website. Like that's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, I was going to get there because one thing I wanted to mention was there is a actual official board of metrics on how you're supposed to get your audience numbers, and it's called the IABV2. And this does
Mm,
adhere to those guidelines. So if you tell somebody your audience numbers, this is a
that's
internationally
exactly.
registered standard.
Yep, exactly. So those are like your legit numbers.
Right.
Like,
And this
yeah.
is the, in air quote, podcasting 2.0 movement, which I will say,
This was
none of,
Adam Curry, right?
well, yes, no. It's bigger than
Okay.
him, but yes, he is one of the guys who's pushing the podcast index and podcasting 2.0 standards to the nth
Okay.
degree.
Okay. Yeah,
But yeah,
so is this isn't but his thing is more crypto based. This isn't that at all, right?
it is not that at all, but it gives you the availability to be podcast 2.0 compliant, is what I'll say.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Okay.
Because one of the key things about podcasting 2.0 is to be able to give you, I want to say the correct term is a Satoshi, where you basically can give through the mechanism like micro payments
Right.
kind of thing.
Honestly, for might be a sidetrack or whatever, but from what I understand, like with Adam Curry anyways, his podcasting 2.0, I thought his sort of podcasting 2.0 thing is built on top of kind of like a blockchain. So like his episodes and all that actually get released like on the blockchain. His MP3 files are like on the blockchain. And like everything that happens within podcast 2.0 is literally on the blockchain.
Well, I
And so it's own whole self-hosted thing. I don't know enough of it. I need to read more about it. I know a lot about the blockchain and NFTs and stuff, but I don't know enough about this.
from what I gather is one of the mechanisms you can release your podcast on is the IPFS, which is the Interplanetary File
Oh,
System.
that is the blockchain.
And it is, I believe, yes, a blockchain based
Dude,
way of distribution.
so cool. But dude, we're installing this. This is what Podnuts is gonna run off of, man. It's gonna be cool.
Well, I'll just say this. Again, slow and steady wins the race. I have a hard time putting my stuff primarily on what I consider to be a profit driven platform.
Mm,
I
mm.
don't care about Bitcoin. I don't want my chocolate and peanut butter mixed up. I want,
Well, but just so you know, the interplanetary file system, which by the way, that's the best name for a file system ever. But that's not tied to Bitcoin. That don't think of it that way.
I know, but what I'm saying is, if people want to patronize me, and give me money.
Mm,
I don't want it tied directly in with a feed type mechanism nor a
sure.
podcast distribution type mechanism, because if people want to support me, I want them to be able to come from any angle,
Mm,
not just one angle kind of thing. And I don't want to support one angle where I still do not know enough to know if the rest of the
mm-hmm,
world could fall into a crater, but my stuff can still run just fine.
mm-hmm.
I say that, and I know I'm a little bit hypocritical, but hello, I'm an American. We're all hypocritical. Um, I run all of my feeds right now through FeedBurner. And
Right,
my excuse slash reasoning is, hypothetically, what if podnuts.com becomes compromised?
right.
I can go and create a new domain, podnuts2.com, but yet, and then go to FeedBurner and point all my
Exactly.
feeds to
Tie
that,
back in everything. Right,
to where I
right.
don't lose the viewership, I don't lose the audience. So I'm not going to say I'm never going to the podcasting 2.0 thing. I will say, um, kind of like getting an electric car. You can get it too early. You can get it too late.
Sure,
And then
sure.
there's a sweet spot where you should get it.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
think we're yet in the sweet spot of moving over
No,
to
we're coming up
2.0.
on it though, dude. We're coming up on it.
On the
I
podcasting 2.0, I
yeah.
think it's coming, but it's not quite here yet.
Yeah, no, no, but like the one sort of thing that the blockchain, I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit or whatever, but the argument for the blockchain is, well, if you're running podcast, Podnuts is running on whatever, the blockchain podcast 2.0, you're not going to get compromised, right? Like that's kind of like the thing. You're on the blockchain, how are you going to get compromised? Everyone sees and validates everything that happens. That's sort of like the catch, I guess, right?
Yeah, but the problem then becomes, what if podcasting 3.0 comes out and then we lose a number of people off of that blockchain? It then becomes very easy for someone to stand up a cluster, take over 50% of the blockchain, then do whatever they want
Right,
to do.
right. Yeah, no, I hear. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's all things to think about.
Right. So, I mean, I will say this. This is the way I'll put it. It is a future. I'm not yet totally convinced it is the future for a
Mm,
long period of time.
mm.
I
I don't know.
do
It's really,
think.
yeah, it's really interesting now. Like,
Oh yeah.
especially to play with,
Well,
especially to play with.
and that's why I said I had this other domain where I'm tempted to try to do some stuff with. And now another tangent, because that's apparently the name of this podcast, Tangent Town. When I first started doing this, one of the things that was a limiting factor was FeedBurner does not like to have RSS files greater than 128
Eight.
kilobits, I believe,
Mm,
1 meg.
mm.
Reason being, if you have 1 million people refreshing that every hour,
Oh shit!
you're going
Right,
to like chew through bandwidth like there's no tomorrow. So they limit the amount of
right.
that. So then I stupidly say, well, let me pay this guy. You go into my WordPress thing. I don't want to download add-ons and plugins because that's vulnerability city. So
Mm-hmm.
you go in, you customize my version of WordPress to where I can produce 2 billion episodes, but the feed will only contain the last 20 episodes.
Mm.
And then I started and fine, whatever. I knew the limit was there, but then I started doing the Revolving Door podcast, which was basically a podcast reviewing podcast. Every episode was
Mm.
like literally a minute and a half long. It was like super short podcast. And I would literally like every week record like 10, and then once a day release. And then
Yeah, yeah.
and then like 150 episodes later, I realized nobody can start from the beginning.
Oh, right. So you're gonna get the last 20.
Right. So I immediately got extremely agitated, upset, mad. So I just stopped doing that podcast. So that's why I'm okay with trying other alternate systems kind of thing, because I I don't think I'm on the best platform right now. Unfortunately, I think I'm on a good enough platform.
Yeah, yeah. I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. But one other slight tangent is in the same lines with What's it called? Not what's this app called again? It's not podcasting 2.0. What was the app called again?
Cast
The
Opod.
Castopod. They have a cool like this other thing that I ran into was like, oh, if you want to run it yourself, go ahead, click on this, and it led me to this other thing called UHost, which you didn't put a link to, but I started going down this rabbit trail, and I'll just throw this out there. This looked really cool, where you could have like your own computer at your house, your own like Raspberry Pi, whatever. You go to this UHost thing, and it like walks you through like downloading like an image onto a USB drive, blah blah. You reboot it, it turns your USB drive into like a server or whatever, and then like you can install this app onto that UHost. It looked really cool, like a seamless way to kind of do it without having to like jump, like without having to understand installing all the dependencies and all that. It was like a pre-packaged thing, and it would just install this Shadowcaster right onto this UHost installation for you. I was like, that's freaking cool.
I can't say I found that UHost thing before, so I'll have to take a look at it.
Yeah, if you click on the link there to like install the whatever it's called there, when you go to click to install it, right below it, it's like, oh, do you not have a UHost account or whatever, or do you want to run a self-hosted version? And it links to that UHost. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Gotcha.
So, yeah. Other than that, very cool.
Yeah, and I will say, again, these are just the things that we found interesting. If you out there find interesting things that you would like to hear Jonathan's opinion on or my opinion on, it's super easy. Linux for the rest of podcast at linuxfortherestofus.com, mail at podnuts.com, door geek at podnuts.com. If you ping me directly on social media platforms, I do believe I get a notice. Don't be shocked if it takes me a little bit to answer it. I am at least semi-active on Discord. There is a Discord link in the notes. There should be. So if you hit me up on there, it's also equally easy. And is always 7076 pod. Wait a minute. Now, I just completely stumbled on my thing. The phone number is 7076 podnut.
I believe that's it.
PODNUT. So that's 7. So it's just 706. Oh, man. I think it's 706 Podnut is the phone number. You can leave us a voicemail.
No, 7076 Podnut would be right.
Okay. And then you can either call us there, leave us a voicemail, which I have had to keep activated because of the lack of voicemails, or you can just literally record on your phone and just send it to us. It's fine. If you are a listener and you swear that you need to be in this conversation in real time, A, you can't sound like you got marbles in your mouth. B, you can have dogs barking like in the background or a smoke alarm nonstop beeping every minute and a half in the background. C, you have to have a hardwired connection or else I will flip out like Steve C used to, because there's no such thing as a fast, non-latency encumbered wireless connection.
Exactly.
Wi-Fi always has hiccups and burps where it slows down. Just because you're streaming your 4K over it and it runs fine doesn't mean it's like a real-time connection.
Exactly.
So yeah, if you want to be here, just don't hesitate to contact us. I am literally, Jonathan, I'm tempted to almost literally open up this platform to be kind of like Linux Basics-ish.
Yeah, dude. That's what I'm saying. It would be interesting as a little test.
Well, and I'll put it like this. We've been around long enough. We've been matured long enough. The platform we're using is mature enough. AKA, we're running this Mumble server off a Raspberry Pi 4, and it runs just fine.
Right.
I've had 28 people connected to this server, all and like open mic, all saying stuff at the same time. I looked at the server load; it still runs just fine. So it's there. If you want to be a part of it, you can. If you want to email us, you can. If you want to tell other people about us, thank you very much. And if you know what is the only Linux podcast I still listen to, send me an email and you might win a prize.
Ooh, that would be interesting.
It's not going to be a Steam Deck, I'll tell you that.
Maybe it'd be a barrel deck of cards.
Yeah. Okay, Jonathan, do you have any parting words?
Thank you for having me on, kind sir. I'm looking forward to many more episodes of speaking about nerdy, open source, awesome things.
And the last thing I'll end with is I believe somebody told me Mr. John Mad Dog Hall is also on the board of conferences for Linux Fest Northwest.
That's possible. It wouldn't surprise me.
In hindsight, extremely possible, I'll say. And I've had 3 people when I said, "Hey, is anyone going to OLF this year in the first week of December?" Nobody said yes. But I had 3 people say, that they're going to Linux Fest Northwest next April, May timeframe, and would I consider going there? And the answer is yes. Yes, I would consider going there, as long as no one tells me I have to try the crab cakes. Between me and you, crab cakes in Portland, Oregon, Washington, Seattle, Willingham suck. I'm sorry.
You come from where they began, so
we love our Old Bay horn.
Yeah, exactly. So don't you know?
Don't you know? Yeah. Okay. So I definitely thank you, Jonathan. I thank everyone for their patience and understanding. I thank Charles and John for coming out and hanging in the YouTube chat. Jonathan is blind, so so he can't keep up with the YouTube chat.
Yeah,
I'm like ADD to where I'm pretty sure like in like a week or 2 they're going to put me on some meds, kind of thing. Because it's really
I'm here
difficult
to balance him out.
Yeah, and it's like really difficult for me to read, type back, and communicate with Jonathan all at the same time. So I have to pick my poisons.
Yeah. No, again, I don't even think we even mentioned that just because we assume whatever. But yeah, I'm totally blind. So
you are, but you can still easily see what is the best damn Linux podcast out there.
There you go, Linux for the rest of us.
Sure, yeah. Okay. I thank everyone for downloading and participating again, and we will hopefully talk to everyone again real soon.
All right. See ya.
So, dumb question, Jonathan. We are back on YouTube. Did you record locally?
I didn't.
Okay, no biggie. I was just say
because I couldn't see how to do it here, and we just kind of jumped into it. So,
gotcha. I would say if you listen to the show and if you want, in air quote, better audio the next time, just record and just send me your audio.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm going to get this edited tonight. I will try, but
whatever.
I have to go to work tomorrow, and I'm only going to go to work for 3 hours. Then I got to go see a doctor, and we'll see how that goes.
But yeah, if you want to make Mondays the regular time, I could totally do that, man. I can make that regularly. So
right between me and you, because I really don't have to worry about some jerk from work listening to an hour and a half to get to this point. I can telework 2 days a week. I always telework on Tuesday because I hate the meeting that happens on Tuesday and I don't want to be there. Yeah, I'll just Teams in to where I can hit mute. I can go to the bathroom, and just do whatever.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I got into computers because I hate people.
There you go.
Right. AKA, I don't want to go to meetings at all.
Exactly.
Ask me to do stuff. I can ask people for help, but I'm not sitting in front of a room of people like, forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I'm an addict and, oh, wait, sorry, wrong meeting.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Oh, all right. I'm going to end off the YouTube stream again. Thank you guys for coming out live.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Oh, man. And I swear I'm not going to turn off the live stream and start playing on my Steam Deck, maybe.